Right, okay, well, my name's Robert Campbell and I farm just outside between Stoke and Middlesbrough and been doing it for about 50 years.
Now, one of the things that you're doing on this farm is getting involved with a campaign for farmed environment. What does that mean?
Well, essentially there is a belief, which is to a certain extent supported by statistics, that agriculture is not being very good for the environment. This probably started to happen during the last war, when food production was the thing that everybody wanted, you know, above all, and little bits of grass like the one I'm standing in, you know, the War Ag Committee would have come along and said, why haven't you got wheat in that? So we went into a system of doing everything right up to the hedges, right up to the edges, and undoubtedly that has removed and reduced the amount of wild habitat. There is a lot of blame attached to pesticides. I don't think there's any real justification for that, other than the fact that because we use pesticides, there aren't the weeds in the fields that there used to be. So, you know, we've got to try and produce weeds in the outside areas. So that's where it starts from. We then started a system of set-aside a few years ago, and actually this piece that we're in now was put in here as set-aside. That is land, a percentage of your land had to be not growing a crop, and it was purely to control production. However, being farmers, we took the view that we don't like not producing anything, so we thought, well, what can we produce? And so there was a certain amount of set-aside in the same sort of crop but going to an industrial use. And quite a lot of it was in land like this, where, you know, we've got clovers, and so we've got what's called pollen and nectar mixes in this patch. And then the environmentalists then woke up to the fact that this set-aside was a benefit, and when the government said we're not going to go set-aside anymore, the environmentalists all said, oh dear. And the farmers said, well, set-aside was a control measure, not environmental measure, and they said, well, it's produced environment, so we want some environment more. So we've still got some government schemes on environment, but the Campaign for Farmed Environment basically is asking farmers just to keep an eye out and to keep a lookout. And what I say is, and I mean, where I'm standing is a very good example. If you can produce 10 tonnes of wheat to the hectare over there, then do it. If you can't produce 10 tonnes of wheat for the hectare here, which you can't because it's shaded and wet and all sorts of things, then let's think of something else to produce. And in this case we've chosen really to keep an environment which is good for butterflies and bees, and the odd pheasant and one or two other bits and pieces.
And thinking about the culture of what's being grown here and what's in the surrounding area, we're standing in this little patch of set-aside,
ex-set-aside.
Ex-set-aside, thank you. And we've got a lot of clover around us, and there's been bees and butterflies. What other sort of biodiversity have you got in the area?
Well, we've got, I mean, obviously we've got woodland, because we've got woodland. I mean, we've planted a lot of woodland, and this is a planted bit of woodland here. We've got hedges, and we have got a couple of small watercourses. We've got ponds. One of the things that has happened, I think, with this rough grassland is that we must have an increase in small mammals, because we have definitely got an increase in sparrowhawks and other and kestrels and owls. We're seeing quite a lot of barn owls now, which we never used to see.